Morning. Oh boy, it's Thursday. I'm switching it up on y'all today. So let me just get set up here on Instagram. So just if anyone is watching this on replay or tuning in right now, welcome. You guys go ahead and hit the like, share button. I gotta start saying that because half the time I forget, and then the other half I'm a little uncomfortable with it still. But like, share to someone who you think needs to hear this message for today, or just any of the other messages. Like if you've caught one of my little rants over the last few months, to send it to someone who you think would benefit from the message of either taking care of themselves or how they need to kind of maneuver in life to take better care of themselves. All right. So today, let me see what I like. Do I like my hair on this side? I think I like my hair on this side. Sorry, y'all. It's a little, I can spin just about anything, but we're talking about loyalty and mental health today. Of course, I haven't started the live yet. Okay, let's get it together. So, we are talking about loyalty and mental health today, and as I just figure out what side of my head I want my hair on, because really I think the biggest thing about loyalty is the end message is going to be it has to come back down to you. If you haven't caught on yet, mental health is all about you. I don't know, I have a lot of cameras on me right now. So good morning. It's Thursday at 9 a.m. I switched it up on y'all today. I actually have to go out of town. Shout out to some newlyweds. I have a wedding this weekend for my little cousin who's getting married. So I will be traveling tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure that I stayed on course. I was loyal to my brand and to y'all about let's open up and have a vulnerable conversation about mental health and how you can transform your life just by taking care of the things between your ears. And I mean, not just your brain, but ultimately it trickles into pretty much everything you do. So this topic, when I have so many things I can talk about, y'all. Like if you were one of my clients, you probably get sick of me and how much I can talk. And I didn't even realize I could talk that much, considering I'm actually quite the introverted person. I know, surprising. But I was taking an inventory of my clients and what are some of the things, as in therapy, do people need to work on? And what are the topics where a lot of just kind of common denominator things of where people get stuck? And in relationships, the concept of loyalty comes up so much, and it's like, I have this person I have to attend. I have to be loyal to my job. I have to be loyal to my pets. I have to be loyal. There's so many degrees of loyalty that really it has to be talked about in mental health, and trying to figure out where the intersection and how to prioritize loyalty within your relationship with self. So this was also prompted by, I was actually listening to, if anyone on here, let me go back to this chat so I'm paying attention. So if anyone's watching, just throw your name in the chat, because I can't actually see who's watching me, I don't think, because I'm on two different platforms at once. But have you ever heard of Napoleon Hill? He is a business entrepreneur, speaker, self-development author. He's real big in the world of entrepreneurship. So I first learned about him when I was working and growing my own business and my own self-development. And I was listening to one of his lectures yesterday, and that's where light bulb went off, and I was like, ooh, loyalty. We maybe need to consider talking about loyalty. And so what I really enjoyed is because loyalty, he talks a lot about just principles of self and how to be successful. And success first of all, for when it comes to mental health, like the idea of not being successful is usually a topic that I have to spend some time on with people, is like, what makes us think that we're not successful for the fact that we're still breathing? I'm not asking you to be grateful and just, go jump into practice gratitude. I'm asking you to, like, what makes you think that you are not successful for already being alive? Because there's a lot of people who have not made it to today. So that's one thing, right? So Napoleon Hill, if anyone's ever heard of him, and if you ever want to go read one of his books, Think and Grow Rich, which it's not all about money, is a really good one. And it brings up the concept of loyalty. And what I loved was that he asked, so this is the lecture version, and he asked the audience, like, how many people here are loyal? And you just kind of hear like a little bit of quiet, and people, it's kind of a little bit of a trick question in a way, because I think the automatic thought to what loyalty means is that how much do we show up for other people? How consistent and dependable are we for other people? Does that make sense? Would you say there's a consistent, like, or a consensus, that's what the word I'm looking for, a consensus that loyalty means the measurement of how much we show up for other people? And while I always like to look at the technical definition to keep me grounded. The state or quality of being loyal, a feeling or attitude of devoted attachment and affection. So in a state of or quality of being loyal, devotion, or a sovereign or a superior, to a sovereign or a superior. To a sovereign or a superior. So that brings two things into my mind: a higher power and other people. That definition, at least from American Heritage and Webster, I believe those sources are, of loyalty typically is only talked about with things outside of ourselves. And that's the trick. When it comes to transformation, the true loyalty has to start with self. Loyalty and mental health go together because I guess for me, it's hard to articulate because I live and breathe the mental health world. So it makes sense for me to be like, yeah, they're the same thing, but not always. In social norms, loyalty is projected upon how much we show up for other people. If we get an invite to a party, are we going to show up for our friend? If a friend asks us to do something for them, are we going to do it? So my question for y'all, and whoever's watching this now or later, is like, what does loyalty mean to you? How do you see and how do you gauge whether or not, and are you loyal? I'm gonna give y'all a minute. Damn, I don't have my water bottle. That's the one thing about lives, is that you can't really I'm just gonna go to the kitchen and grab my water because I forgot it, because I was real loyal to the mirror this morning. And I had to make sure that my hair was dry before I came on the camera, because then I got to go straight into sessions after this. But so the question is, though, loyalty. Are you loyal? And how do you identify how you're loyal, right? So for anyone who is considering loyalty, where a lot of mental health problems come in, is the disconnect of loyalty from the externalized standpoint. So I'll use myself, is like, I said no, therefore I'm not loyal. No. And I don't want to shake my head in a way where it makes you guys think it's like it's so simple to understand, like, no, that's not a disloyal trait, because some people really do believe that. There was a version of me about 3-4 years ago in my transformation journey, and the journey that I'm going to continue to have, that perceives disloyalty as saying no. No. That is probably the most loyal thing that you can do. They're called boundaries. No, they're not easy. Boundaries is a whole series in itself within my program, and they're very consistent. My program depends on the person, like how active you are in applying the lessons and the challenges of doing healthier things for yourself. And boundaries is probably the most complex one, just because they're invisible. they still come with emotion and you have to regulate. But point being is that disloyalty is often perceived as doing something healthy, as being the healthy form of selfish. And now when you stay loyal to everything else outside of you, then you're truly not grounded in the value of loyalty to yourself. Being loyal to yourself first and foremost creates sustainability in being able to be loyal to other people, because you are grounded. You have built a foundation of loyalty that you can in turn extend yourself after some time of showing up for yourself. We'll talk about what self-loyalty looks like in a second. But you have grounded yourself in the value of loyalty, so therefore it's sustainable. Just like one of these, well, these are fake plants in my like fake Zoom background. But when you plant a seed, you grow roots, and you can transfer those roots into a different pot. You can what's the word? You can have offspring from a certain plant. So when you focus on self, therefore, you can in turn extend loyalty to other people, and in turn be loyal to other people and then receive the perception and be identified as a loyal person from other people. So one thing I found interesting, I had to write down what Napoleon Hill said in his speech, was one of his principles, like his bullet point of loyalty, is loyal to all, to those who it is due. I love vagueness because you can unpack the heck out of it. And it's duplicitous in some way, because it applies to, in order for you to be loyal to others, it's implying that you have to be loyal to yourself. You can do both. You should do both, I will say. But loyalty to self, let's start there, right? Is like, why do people resist that? Now, that's an open-ended question. If anyone wants to drop in the chat and be like, why do people resist loyalty to self? Well, this is more of my opinion that's based off of just talking to a lot of different types of people. But loyalty to self is labeled as selfish. And I don't know if the majority, because this new age of like it's not really new age, but but mental health, we're starting to normalize being selfish as healthy. But it also can be in unhealthy forms. So if you are loyal to everyone else outside of yourself, you become inconsistent in your ability to be loyal, because you have not grounded yourself in tending to your needs. So selfishness, and why I claim to be pretty darn selfish, is that I'm going to make sure, in a cliche way, that my mask's on first before I put someone else's on. Because if I overextend myself, I now reap consequences within my own life to be able to show up for me. If I can't show up for me, I can't show up for anyone else. And then I also can't expect other people to show up for me, because now I don't have the energy to say anything that I need. I isolate. So being selfish in an unhealthy way is actually, or being loyal to others, being being unselfish, is actually very unsustainable, and the stigmatized version of disloyal that people get claimed, like, oh, you're not loyal because you have to do something selfish. That may just be someone else's inability to be told no. Not many people like to hear the word no. I know I don't like to hear the word no all the time. I accept it because that's someone else's boundary, but doesn't necessarily make it any easier to hear. So loyalty to self, can that look like? Well, I told y'all how I was loyal to myself. I had to make sure my hair was on point for y'all. But so like tending to your needs, making sure you take care of yourself from, and not only just the mental health. I'm not going to just keep putting on prioritize your mental health, because that's such a complicated process in itself. But making sure you get enough sleep, that's being loyal to yourself. Making sure that you actually eat food within the day. We're in this really toxic diet culture, intermittent fasting, keto, low carb, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I got caught up in two, and you can learn something from that, but you got to figure out your own way at the end of the day. So loyalty to self can figuring out your own way and being okay with it, being calm and peaceful about that, because people are going to criticize it. They're not going to like, you doing your own thing. But you being loyal to yourself is the number one thing that will provide consistency and loyalty to other people and other things that you do. It will extend itself to business. It will extend itself to your employer. You do not have to be an entrepreneur to have a degree of loyalty. And it's not a bad thing to be loyal to a company as long as you know your value. I'm not talking about the whole quiet quitting thing. I'm talking about knowing your impact on an agency's productivity and development. So your sense of self does not get lost, that your loyalty to self, to paying attention to what's important for you to feel needed, wanted, and valued at an agency doesn't get lost in the sauce, and you're not completely dependent on your supervisor affirming you. So that means you can prioritize affirmations. So if anyone, this is more me calling my old self out and some reason, if anyone is uncomfortable with receiving a compliment, look at that. Because if you deflect it, that's what I do. You're like, oh, thank you. And or you feel obligated to give it back to someone, you're likely not actually receiving the love that it is that you deserve. You're not comfortable with it. And that is a mental health issue. If you're not able to give and receive love for yourself and to other people without feeling like it's going to be misconstrued, taken advantage of, then you're becoming in a state of isolation. And I know this because I'm an introvert and I can easily do it. When I am not showing up for myself, when I am not, and I don't do affirmations every single day, but when I first started out on this journey, I had to. That's why if you guys have seen any of either my TikToks or my other lives, these affirmation cards, they're in my Amazon cart too. You get them at Target, you can get them on Amazon, Affirmators. They prompted me to be and show up for myself every morning. I rolled out of bed and drew a card. So then that way my mind was now focused on something that I wasn't calling up that concept in myself. You know what, let's do one right now. Because this is one thing I'm loyal to. Yes, affirmations. I actually was super uncomfortable with affirmations at first because I thought I was lying to myself. I truly didn't believe that I was worthy of loving and seeing myself because I was uncomfortable with me. So y'all think I just lost all this weight? No, it took me 5 years because I was working on this thing. I was working in here to make sure that I could show up and be loyal to myself first. And guess what? People didn't like it. I lost people over it. I lost people over being loyal to myself. And because I was ultimately trying to balance being loyal to them, and then I had to reserve some of my energy to be loyal to myself. There's one person, one of a really close family member of mine, someone I love dearly, he told me, he's a former military Army Ranger. He told me, never give anyone your last. And I that message. It was so simple. And it hit me I had no idea how pivotal it was. And I give people a lot. But I always hold myself accountable to never giving anyone my last, whether that is, if you're in my inner circle, you know how that is sometimes very accurate with food. I'll have the last popsicle. I won't always have the last popsicle. I will offer it to you, but if it's my favorite, I'm not gonna offer it. There's been some times where I'm just not going to offer my last favorite popsicle. Or it can be money, it can be time. If you overbook yourself, that is the number one, in my opinion, from therapeutic standpoint. The relationship we have with time is you give so many people, you overbook yourself because you're giving other people your time. If you're overbooked, that's not about you. That's about everyone else. I don't care what you do for work. If you overbook, you're now becoming disloyal because you can't show up. You've double booked yourself. And I've been guilty of it a couple times. You've double booked yourself because you have not been prioritizing yourself in your time. So, quick affirmation break from this rant. I do this kind of rant. I lay them out for myself, but if it was a client, then I kind of do it like a little tarot card vibe. So I don't know if y'all see, and they're kind of weird because they usually hit on topic that I'm either talking about in session, but it says follow your heart. No one has your heart. And this is my one, I got a lot of arguments. I don't mean like argue. It's argument. It's just it's a heated discussion about mental health points. But when I'm always rewarded when I follow my heart, I trust that the GPS in my heart knows all the best routes. And when it seems like it's taking too long to get where I want, I know that's because there's some cool, weird stuff to see along the way. That's why I love these. They're just kind of, nice and refreshing to remind you, like, your heart. So my argument with this one and loyalty where it comes to mental health. If I already told the cliche one, put your mask on. All the airlines tell you, if you've never taken a plane, you've probably seen it in some commercial. You put your mask on before you put even your child's mask on. I think is that how it goes? Y'all may have to correct me on that one. I haven't been on that plane in like a year or so. But you always put your mask on first. So here's the thing let me extend this to, we talked about a little bit about self-loyalty. Let's talk about like working within an agency and business, and where I think a lot of mental health, I'll try to get off my soapbox a little bit here, but a lot of mental health in general, the whole population of why mental health is suffering is because of capitalism and business practices that were not sustainable, that were an attempt to be either completely loyal to their constituents, to their employees, and trying to prioritize more employee health and the CEO's health, not sustainable. Or it was completely on the other side of the spectrum and unhealthy, selfish, because it was money driven. It was always about loyalty to making money. And that's where the capitalism comes in. Capitalism works in some ways, but it has had consequences because of how people are devalued in the process of producing. How people are valued. Yeah, I think I said that. So when it comes to loyalty from a leadership standpoint, there's no one right way, but this is where I would encourage providers and I would encourage leaders to consider that when you're in a tough position. So first and foremost, I'm just going to affirm, because I've been in a leadership role and I've made mistakes. I've trusted and been loyal, and I had faith in my leadership abilities, but it just, I don't know, to be determined. It's a lot of pressure to try to not only just make decisions, but then also accommodate and consider other people and the impact of your decisions. And really, loyalty comes down to not necessarily what you ask someone to do, it's how you ask them to do it. You can pretty much work with just about anyone. If you prioritize yourself, you've now prioritized, excuse me, you've prioritized a healthy relationship with self. So therefore you can prioritize a healthy relationship and communication with anyone that you extend that to. So the way that you tell people and give people a task becomes secure and grounded. See, I forgot my water bottle. Now this is messing me up. It becomes almost like naturally protected in a way where you're able to remain loyal and value the relationship with your employee and you could have them you could be firing them. I've had to fire a friend before, and because I prioritized loyalty to the way that I needed to do it and I accepted the way that I needed to do it, I'll be honest with y'all, I cried a little bit in front, because this was the first time I had ever fired someone, that the relationship remained intact outside of the business relationship. And so when you remain loyal to yourself and you don't ever give anyone your last, you have so much more sustainability in being able to be consistent within how you approach relationships, how you approach really uncomfortable, challenging conversations. And so I will even say, like, this is something when I started taking a look at my values, I'd sat down and I do this, every few years or so to make sure, like, I don't think most of my values are not going to change, but loyalty was one of them. I'm a Cancer. I'm a nurturer. I'm a lover. I just want everyone to be happy and peaceful. But I left myself out of that. I was not happy and peaceful because I was so overstimulated by everyone else's stuff because I was showing up for them and I wasn't showing up for myself, that those hard conversations were really hard. They were harder than they needed to be because I had not worked on how I wanted to communicate my message. I had not worked on how I wanted the other person to feel. And now I can't control that. I can't control the perception of how someone receives my message, but I can be intentional about what kind of impact I want to make. So that balance between intention and impact is delicate. You're never going to get it 100% balanced. This is one of my mottos in therapy is like, in order to be in balance, or in order to be balanced, you have to know imbalance. So if you deny the fact that you've ever been in a low mood, or I'm not going to say depressed, meaning like the diagnostic form, but if you've ever been down and you just put the mask on to be able to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm good, then you are denying yourself the reality to be balanced. You're resisting the process, because in order to be balanced, in order to be successful, you have to be unsuccessful, because you will not know success when it hits you if you don't know what unsuccessful feels like. So where's my point? So yeah, that's the affirmations, being loyal to self. There's various different practices. I would love to hear some of yours who you're watching. How do you stay loyal to yourself? How do you stay grounded within what's important to you? And asking anyone has any thoughts on like, do I have loyalty? If you have not been being loyal to yourself, how do you make that first step to prioritize that? Doesn't have, right now, remind you, does not have to be an all or nothing, like, nope, everyone's cut off. I'm being loyal to myself first and foremost, because that is also isolative in a way. If you have to do it that way, I get it. But remember, the pendulum swings. It will swing back where you have to now eventually come back out of your shell. I'll talk about it in my sense because I am a Cancer. So I tend to, when I subscribe to most of that personality, I go in my shell. But I have to force myself back out of my shell at some point, because I'm not supposed to be in all the time. It's a balance between those personality traits where we have to be social. If you struggle and have a lot of social anxiety, that often can be a degree of loyalty involved. You've been more loyal to being the busy bee, being the extroverted friend, being there for everyone else, that it's started to take a toll on your mental health or your budget or your health in general. Let me make sure. So this is, I think it kind of, to wrap it up, I think I just wanted to talk about this instead. So I'm going to make it work. Loyalty and mental health comes down to one of this is my other like little saying. It will be on some of my merch soon, which I'll be releasing. So stay tuned. And it is, say what you do what you say. Now, you don't ever, I'll say the disclaimer, you don't have to explain yourself, but it would really probably help your situation if you did. As not only just for yourself, because when you do what you say, you ultimately need to say what you do at the same time. That right there is your recipe for loyalty. So when you tell yourself that you're going to do something, doing it will slowly start to have that universal law of investment. The energy will come back to you. And when I say energy, I don't mean just like money, physical money. I mean it in any form of currency. You will feel more revived from an energetic standpoint if you do what you say and you say what you do. Your word, and this, I probably didn't talk about this at the beginning, but your word is the most valuable thing that you have here. Yes, your actions here. Yes, money is valuable, but you being able to show up for yourself is that, because then you can do it for other people. Then you can be consistent. You can make adjustments as needed. Say what you do what you say. It can be interchangeable. Do what you say what you do. That mirror of an accountability is really what it is that is when you lay out what you said you do. I'm not putting a timeline on this, mind you. If you find your brain putting a timeline like, oh, I said I was going to do this like 2 weeks ago and I haven't done it, that does matter. You're in control of the timeline though. as long as you find a way to show up for yourself and align yourself with what you said you would do, you're doing something versus nothing. Whereas if you were doing nothing, you would be not doing what you say at all. So doing something is better than nothing, and eventually doing more will get you more results. But if you're struggling to get started, if you're dealing with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, even bipolar disorder, even schizophrenia, I don't care how severe your diagnosis is. If you said you were going to do something and you don't do it, my first thing would be like, break it down for yourself. There's something that's blocking you. Well, one, it would be ask for help, which is harder, easier said than done. But asking for help to get over those hurdles will help you stay more loyal to your word. Now, if you have a severe diagnosis within the schizophrenia range, like there's a lot of confusion and just chaos going on internally, that there's a lot of distrust in knowing what to trust in your brain. That's where you would definitely need help. But building and showing up for appointments, showing up and taking medications, even though I'm not all in on medications, but they will help get you to the therapeutic modalities that will help you build that foundation of loyalty to self. It is vital for your health to show up for you. Okay. I think I've driven and beaten that horse. Like, we get the point, right? We get the point. Does anyone have any questions that's still here, like about, or something that you're struggling with? If you're struggling with trying to get loyal or to remain loyal to yourself, maybe I can help kind of dislodge something, because that's what this time is for too. Because other than that, I gotta go by 10 because I gotta eat and I gotta see my clients too. It's a client day. Usually go live on Fridays, but I'll be at a wedding this weekend, having a little bit of fun. It just triggered another thought where I can keep talking. So that's why I said this is a conversation or a monologue, because I have a conversation with myself half the time. It's my own voice. If it's a different voice, you probably need to ask me some other questions. But talking to yourself is that running narrative that you can hear. Okay, what are the things in my life that I want to pay attention to? So fun. Having fun is a very important part for mental health and to remain loyal to yourself. We need to be able to have play, and we need to be able to have play and not align it with work. That's going to be something I am going to have to work on this weekend, because I have a lot of work I am doing and, building this content for y'all. I still see a lot of clients. I still have a life, like there's a lot to go that goes into maintain. So fun is very important for me to have. And fun is a degree of loyalty that a lot of people, like, we're in such this like critical self-critique and shame culture that they're like, no, I can't have fun till I do this. So even though I just said a huge pillar is do what you say what you do, you may need to move a task that you said to do for yourself today to tomorrow, because realistically, you're going to start triggering your shame voices and you're going to reduce the risk of reduce the likelihood that you actually do it and build that loyalty bank. Is the word I'm going to use. Build the loyalty bank up for yourself. So be mindful of that too, is because the more pressure that you put on yourself to be loyal, like, oh, I got to show up for myself, to show up, it's not going to be fun anymore. You being loyal to yourself is about relaxing, is about bringing peace to your life. If you can go back and see, I believe it's on my YouTube channel. I did a talk about the peace model in my program, and it's an acronym for how you can move through emotion, how you can move through a problem, or how you can facilitate change from your current moment. And it stands for perspective, education, acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. Loyalty, those are all values that I have that go into the process of transformation, in my opinion. But I also kind of set it up as like, you have to be able to give yourself a perspective of just your current state. And if your current state is just more negative because you're like, gotta do this, gotta do this, give yourself the break to see what doing it without the harsh, critical voice in your head. Just because it's been working does not mean that it does not need to be reevaluated to see if it could work even better, right? There's nothing wrong with you. I'm going to start going on tangents into mental health stigmas if I'm not careful, but I just want y'all to, your biggest takeaway here is find a way to do one thing that brings you in line with loyalty to yourself today. That can be self care, that can be sleep, that can be eating a good meal. It does not have to be eating out a good meal. It's not all just about get what you want all the time, but loyalty to self. It may be, canceling that plan that you made a week ago and you're like, really, you're just really tired and you're not going to be the best version of yourself. So prioritizing yourself there, as long as you communicate what it is that you need when you are taking that away from someone, because everyone's got different situations of when they cancel plans. So or sometimes, if I'm on the flip side, sometimes being loyal to yourself, if you've been isolative, if you've been in a healing season or a depressive season, being loyal to you is actually prioritizing socializing, excuse me. And because we are social beings and we do need to be loyal to ourselves and maintaining that need to be around people. So yeah, that's your call to action this week. Find one way to be loyal to yourself, and even reevaluating, how you are loyal to other people can be a loyalty alignment with self. So last week I talked about inventory. I think the best inventory for this topic of loyalty and mental health does come down to the codependency inventory on my website. You can also find it in the app, which the links are on my website under the drop-down box. The inventories are on my homepage and you just look for the link codependency, and going through that inventory and just saying like, I do here, that in turn becomes your blueprint to how you can be more loyal to yourself and take more care of your mental health. It's, again, I want to remind y'all, is not an all or nothing response to doing this. It is small changes. So if you are, let's see if I can recall one of the codependency inventory things. There's a section on denial. So if you can acknowledge that you have been in denial of your needs, doing one thing to prioritize your needs is moving you towards a state of recovery and sustainability and change. Low self-esteem. We talked about affirmations earlier, and if you need to hear affirmations, it could be a degree of loyalty in how you show up for yourself. Could be either saying your own affirmations, preferably in a mirror, but you don't have to be that cliche. If anything, write them down if it's uncomfortable for you, or you can call one of your people who you know has been loyal to you and will get and have your back, and ask them to give you an affirmation. If you can't do it on your own, it's okay to ask someone and start there. But I'm real strong on interdependent, so you won't stay on depending on everyone else for your affirmations over time. So I hope you guys have a good weekend. I'm going to have a good weekend celebrating my family and love. I love weddings. At first, I didn't like weddings because I was like really insecure about myself and love, and I couldn't, accept, receive love. But I'm excited. It's a 10-hour drive, but I am excited. So I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you next week. We'll go back to Friday at 10. But maybe, I don't know, I might make a couple of debuts throughout the week, depending on my schedule. But if not, I will see y'all next time. Bye.